I think that really when you're, I'm trying to think of the right way to answer this because the way we experience music and doing things, I think, are even now is different for new bands. We put out a record with zero expectation, zero sort of thought about what was trendy or cool or happening in that moment in time or how the social media would react to it and all these different things. Like we just put out a record on a small label that was made up in Leeds through our manager at the time who named it after his club night and his festival. We put it out and I don't think anybody in that room after making a record in 2 weeks, which by the way is a pretty mental thing to do, to record a whole album in 2 weeks. But to us, we didn't know anything differently, so we were just like, "This is amazing. We'll make our first album." And then you put it out, and I think I didn't. All I knew that it meant was that it was the first time I was seeing people review our album in magazines or online and like for stuff, and I just thought that was just really crazy. And I remember during that album we headlined the London Astoria, which at the time it will always be a famous venue, but at the time was like to headline and sell out that venue as like an unsigned band essentially was not something that people did. I think we're only one of five bands to have ever done that. So yeah, it was a crazy time, and but we were kids. We were 16, 17 years of age, 18 years of age. So like, we were just stoked that we didn't have to go to college. Do you know what I mean? Or get a crappy job that we didn't like. So that was, and then that's why that's why even though we had lots of fun, but we also took it quite seriously, even as young blokes. Cause we're like, well, if you want to go back to your mum and dad's house and work in a crappy job, then enjoy this as a holiday and go back to reality tomorrow. But if you want to like build on this thing and take it really seriously and work hard, then we might even have a chance of doing something with this. And I think that album, by the time we got to the end of that album and we were doing, around 3,000 people across England, we were like, okay, this is like a proper thing now. Like people know who we are, or starting to know who we are, and very exciting time for any band to be on that upward trajectory. It's crazy. I think for me the thing that I've struggled on and off with over the years is understanding, or even more so, knowing when to accept criticism and how to like digest that and process that. Because again, when you're a young man or a young woman and you're doing something that is so personal and so raw, and is something that is you only really have put together because it's like a cathartic, therapeutic thing, and then to have people turn on it, and for it not to be, not only is it, oh, it's not really my bag or I don't really like it, but like to go after it and almost belittle something that's very personal to you. Music and art is one of the very few platforms and vehicles, if you want to call it that, in which people can do that. I guess sport is kind of synonymous with that as well, but fundamentally, music, you put it out there and it's not always met with pats on the back and high fives, and I think sometimes as a young bloke I found I wanted to be like, well, you do better then. It's so fucking easy sitting in your chair in your little magazine room or your radio station or whatever. You come and write a song better than we've just done and see how easy it is. And I think it's learning how to, when to let go of anger and to let go of disappointment with things like that is a massive, not only a big process of like being a human being, but also being, not only being a musician, but fundamentally growing from a boy to a man, and understanding that whole thing. Because if you don't deal with it and address it, then it's just something that can just turn really toxic. And
Every time.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, as far as no, I think as far as we're concerned, Dan Austin was more than, I mean, we've co-produced it, but not as just one person, one other person. It's as like a group of 6 people. I mean, what he brought to the table is monumental. I can't really stress that enough. He gave us the freedom in the studio more than we've ever had, the confidence, the belief, the enthusiasm, the work rate, and I think all of those things, you know, when you're trying to do something creative, you need to be around people that aren't just looking at you as a service or a payday. And some producers in our past, I've felt, haven't been as invested in the project, as we were. And Dan was the first person I've met in many years that kind of reignited my belief in the producer role, if that makes sense. And it was a lot of fun, and we really, the thing he made us talk about often was owning what we were trying to do and to be fearless with it and not second guess it, and also not try and compromise it. Like, if you're gonna make a song that is a dance song with guitars, make a fucking dance song with guitars. And if you're gonna write a song like Fast Forward, which was in your face and is meant to be just a big old slap of guitar and noise and aggression, then do that and do it and own it, and don't dip your toe and dive into the deep end sort of thing with it. And I liked that about him, because then it made me think that when I was tracking vocals for certain songs, I was picturing what I wanted as like the outcome and the end goal, and how I'd get there would be by channeling that same sort of energy in that process. I think a toss-up between Miracle in the Morning and IOU, because they were both songs that weren't really written as songs. They were written as essentially like sort of sound bites and standalone parts, and Dan did a lot of his recording, his drumming as samples. He didn't play the whole song the whole way through. He wrote like little chops, and that we'd sort of glue together to bespoke what it was we were trying to do, you know, like that was very different. And I remember one day we were trying to jam IOU as a band before we were probably starting to record it, and I was like, this is never gonna work. Like, there's just no way we can go from this verse into this chorus. And like, what is the gateway to doing that? And Dan Austin was just like, don't worry about that. I've got you've painted half the picture, I've got the other half in my head. You just need to trust me that we will be able to build it. Once we start recording, it'll be fine. So that was a longer process mentally, and then also when it came to actually like listening back to the song, being like, can we put this out as a unit? Can we do this? Like, is this gonna be acceptable? And you know, I don't know if you're staying for the show tonight, but if you are, then you'll see it's probably one of the most popular songs in the set. You know, so it's a strange one, but very enjoyable.
In different cities?
Yeah, of course. I mean, look, for starters, I remember the period of time I was telling you about when we were just starting to do like 3,000 people a night in England, and we came and did our first European headline tour and played to about 40 people in Stuttgart. And I remember thinking, oh, okay, we start again here. Like, just because you've started to make waves in one market, in one territory, doesn't mean that you suddenly have 3,000 people a night in Germany that love your band. And so it was good for us, because it was like a reset. You know, you get back that hunger and that drive, like, okay. And even now, you know, like, as I said, that, you know, coming here, and for example, in Prague, it's taken us, we've been there 3 or 4 times, I believe, as a headline band, but now we're, you know, selling out our shows there, which we haven't always done. And tonight, you know, I think it's pretty damn close to selling out. So it's like, to do a headline show for the first time in a country, and for that to happen, that's rare. We've not had that very often, you know. So, and I think to touch on what you said about what have I noticed change over the years, it's everything. It's like, because society's obviously changed. Therefore, I mean, there was a time where you could go on stage and you could be on your phone afterwards and you could tell 10, 15 of your mates' bands that they would be popular in this city or this country because of every single person in the audience was wearing a band t-shirt, more often than not. Now it's like you don't see any band T-shirts because are people still buying them? Well, yeah, because we're still making money from our merch sales, as is the majority of artists. But there's like been a switch where people are like, oh no, but I've got to dress the way that me as an 18-year-old should dress based on what the internet and social media and influencers and all these people are telling. So there's maybe a bit more. Even so, it's interesting. The internet has acted almost as like a double-edged sword in a way that it's allowed people to present themselves and express themselves truly to themselves and honestly, and to the masses, to more and more people, and that's good. And you can meet new people and yada yada. But then the ugly side of it, I think, is that I think it's taken away actually some of the individuality that we had in society, where you could get on. You could. I don't know if this expression is used in Poland, but I've now just forgotten what I was going to say. Like a it's called going down the rabbit hole. But you could go on like an Instagram rabbit hole, and you could see every single bloke or every single girl look exactly the same as the last person, because they're either all in the gym, and they're all wearing their Yeezys, they're all wearing this, they're all wearing that. It's just like where's the spirit of independence? Where's that sort of, But then at the same time, when you do see that, it now stands out even more so, because people are like, oh, finally something a bit more refreshing, not as monotonous and samey. So yeah. Fuck, I'm just gonna go for like the bipolar opposites. Sorry, the polar opposites of two people. And I'd like to sit under the table and listen to John Lennon talking to Adolf Hitler, where two forces for two completely different things, good and evil, collide, and understand at what point and on what level the meeting of minds would take place. I don't know if they would, but I'd be interested to hear how that would pan out.
That would be interesting for sure.
Yeah.